Hi everyone. So I'm coming on today with something a little different. This is going to be a little bit harder of a video for me to do just because it means a lot to me. And I'm sorry, I'm adjusting this camera so it's bouncing a little. But a year ago today, we lost my beautiful mother. And origami cranes meant a lot to her, and I'm going to share that story and fold origami cranes. So these are some that were already folded. These are out of a glitter paper, which is a little bit more difficult to work with, so I'm not going to be working with that today, but I did want to show you guys because they're gorgeous. They just come out so beautiful. They mean a lot to our family due to the journey with my mom's health and who she was. So like I said, I will share that story here. First part, I'm just going to be folding cranes and sharing that story. And then at the end of the video, I am going to show y'all with 5 papers how to fold an origami crane and hopefully teach you something new. I have tissues because, like I said, here we go today, lost my beautiful mom. She loved colorful tissue boxes, so I felt like this one was fitting. And this was one of her bowls, nothing fancy. I think it's from like Target, but she loved things like this, so this is where I'm going to put the cranes. I am going to fold 26 cranes total today with y'all. 26 was Mom's favorite number. It meant God in Hebrew. The features that Hebrew writes out, or how they write it, means God. So symbolizes 26 written out symbolizes God. So that was her favorite number. So that's why I will do 26. But yeah, so let's start. Those are kind of what they'll come out like. I am going to be using different size papers because I've been doing this so long and folded so many that the size ultimately doesn't matter to me. I like a smaller size. My favorite size is going to be the 3-inch squares, but I have a couple that are just a little bit smaller than that. You'll notice this is actually a piece of wrapping paper. So anywho, so we'll start folding some cranes and I'll get to share the story. So my mother, like I said, passed away passed away a year ago today. It's really hard to believe that. She was a beautiful soul in person and left this world way too soon. But obviously there was purpose in her life for sure. The last 7.5, 8 years of her life were a definite struggle. She was diagnosed when the year my youngest was born, she was actually diagnosed with a brain tumor called glioblastoma, short GBM. Same type of cancer or tumor that Senator McCain passed away from. It's a very aggressive tumor in the brain, and truthfully, doctors told her 6 months to a year. We found out very suddenly she was having some issues, but we didn't really understand the extent of her issues, and she hadn't fully shared the extent of her issues until she went to the doctor, and they asked to do an MRI, and they basically told us, yeah, her symptoms could be stress, stroke, or a brain tumor. All of us were like, no way, a brain tumor, not that. Well, it turns out she had a golf ball size tumor in her right frontal lobe of the brain. She inadvertently, my grandmother had met a couple and years ago on a cruise, when she was on a cruise with her husband, my grandpa, and they met this couple and had stayed in touch all through the years. And the man of this couple worked at National Institute of Health, NIH, there in Bethesda, Maryland. Now he is in kidney section, so doesn't deal with the brain, but my grandmother reached out to him and let him know what was going on at the time, and he said, get me her records, get me her scans, get me everything. And so the doctors overnighted it to him, and he took it to the brain team, the neurologist team, and they met and they felt Mom was a great candidate, so they flew her and my grandmother out. My sister also joined them. My sister is 13 years younger than me, and so she was getting ready to actually go off to college when all this was transpiring. So she ended up going out to Bethesda, Maryland as well. They would know better than me on this side because I was dealing with obviously all this news of my mom, but also with a newborn. So was a little bit chaotic on my side, and I want to say they spent a minimum of 6 weeks out there. It might have been longer than that. Basically, our mom had open brain surgery, basically, where she's partially awake through the process. It was like an all-day surgery to remove the tumor. Doctors felt like they got quite a bit of it. And then they sent it off to pathology. Pathology came back the day that they were to fly back to Colorado. And they hadn't called me to say they were on the way to the airport, so I knew something was wrong. Come to find out, pathology told them that it was a GBM and that Mom had 6 months to a year if she opted to take the extensive treatment on it. And if she opted to not, she probably had weeks. So she opted for that and stayed in Bethesda, Maryland doing chemo and radiation. And then eventually, once radiation side of things were done, then she went back to Colorado to live with my grandmother and my grandpa during kind of recovery side of things. Fast forward a little bit, like we went and saw her in like August that year, so she was diagnosed in April, and I finally got to go see her. I want to say it was like August time frame, maybe it was July, but somewhere around there I got to go see her finally, and we got to hang out with her. And then it wasn't until we decided we were going to move to Kentucky, and we sold our house in Nevada. And so we figured that that was Mom's last Christmas, even with this extensive treatment. So we decided that we would spend Christmas in Colorado and spend about a month with her, and just basically uprooted our family. And with kind of crazy times spent my husband and I with 2 kids, one being 4.5 and the other being still under 1. Along with a puppy dog and 2 cats, multiple houseplants, decided to go to Colorado and spend a month there. So we were in a little hotel room, not even a suite, just a little hotel room in a little town in Colorado, and we got to spend Christmas with my mom. It was really beautiful. Some things had changed though. Her housing situation had changed, and so there was some scrambling we had to do. Our housing situation was up in the air ourselves. Jobs, we didn't have jobs lined up. It was kind of a chaotic, stressful time, of course, but very blessed to be able to have the time with her. She started having some complications with the chemo pill, and basically was having oxygen issues, and it was determined that the altitude was getting to her. Even though she had lived in Montana for many years, and then she had been, she grew up in Colorado, and she should have been acclimated to that higher altitude. It just was getting her on top of with that chemo pill for some reason. They don't really know exactly why, but they felt like it would be best for her to get to lower altitude. Oh, this little guy's not cut perfectly. I'm going to have to fix him. But so, ultimately, with all this happening and the housing issue that she was in, we had finally found a house for ourselves in Kentucky, and we have this room over our garage that's about 400 square feet. And we said, why don't you come live with us for a time, get back on your feet, and go from there. So, ultimately, we moved here to Kentucky, packed up the whole family, moved to Kentucky, got ourselves settled, and about, I guess that was in January, and then come about April time frame, Mom came along. They moved all of her furniture, had a moving company bring all the furniture in, and she lived with us for about a year, and she was doing really good. I mean, she was surpassing all of the thoughts with the doctor's thoughts and so forth. So with that, they said that she was doing really good, and I apologize. Puppy dog just came in, and we're trying to get him out, and he's refusing. Come on, Trax. Traxie, let's go. Okay, puppy dog out. He was not going to go without Mama. He's a mama's boy, and he feels the emotion today with me, so he's kind of clingy. Anyway, so Mom moved in, and she was surpassing, of course, all the things that the doctors had said, and had clear MRIs. Everything was going good. She eventually started working part-time, and even got to where we moved her out to her own place. She had a little trailer not far from us, maybe 15 minutes from our house, and she was doing great. We would still do every 6-month follow-ups. 6 months was protocol at the most with GBM. You just don't go beyond 6 months because you want to catch anything that could be growing. And it's such an aggressive type of cancer that the likelihood of regrowth is very prominent. So we would do doctor's appointments still every 6 months. She would do an MRI, get the results. Everything was clear, continued to be clear. Looked great on her scans. And then, let's fast forward. She then, I guess she lived on her own. She was driving again. I mean, honestly, surpassed all odds. It's really wild when I think about it, because there's no explanation of why, other than when I read through her medical records and the surgery that she had. It sounds like the tumor was encased in a sac of fluid, which I think prevented it from growing or octopusing out. So GBM is known for its tentacles like an octopus, and it has multiple hundreds of tentacles and can spread throughout the brain, which makes it really hard to treat and really hard to surgically remove. But based on reading her surgery notes, and I'm not a doctor, but I became really good about reading and doing Dr. Google. But it sounds like the tumor was encased in this sac of fluid, so maybe it prevented it from spreading its tentacles, which is fantastic, and probably why it took pathology to diagnose that was a GBM, because a lot of people get diagnosed with GBM without pathology results. And I believe my non-medical professional thought is that it's because they can see the tentacles coming out, and so they know that that's the telltale sign of GBM glioblastoma. So anywho, so she's like surpassing all odds, living on her own, working part-time, and she ends up taking a couple different jobs part-time, driving. I mean, really succeeding. Obviously, there were hiccups along the way. It wasn't like it was smooth sailing. It wasn't like we didn't have some scares, things like that. But overall, we were truly, truly, truly blessed. And then it would have been probably end of 21. She started experiencing these falls, like sudden falls. It was really kind of strange, because I would ask her about them, and she couldn't really explain them to me other than that she had fallen, and there was always something potentially that could be an excuse for said fall. For example, she stepped off the curb and just stepped funny and went down to the ground. and then a stranger had to pick her up. She fell in the back room at work because it was full of boxes, and she just misstepped and footing-wise went down. She was really tired and missed the step, or was in a hurry to get out of bed to run to the bathroom and fell on the floor at home. Things like that. And she would tell me about 1 or 2 falls, okay, during the week. And okay, you kind of go, well, that's odd. You know, you gotta slow down, rest, take care of yourself, that kind of thing. What I wasn't aware of was that she was also sharing 2 or 3 different falls with my sister. And then she was sharing 2 or 3 different falls with my grandmother. So she might overlap a fall or 2 with all of us, but when we started all talking and linking all this together, we started realizing that she was probably falling about once a day. And anybody who really knew my mom, she was terrified of falling. Terrified of falling. But these were just like nonchalant things. She'd just be like, oh yeah, I fell today. Like, it was just really bizarre. So, once we realized there was more falls happening than we thought, then it was like something's going on. And then she started complaining that she was having like numbness in her left leg. So I had that year, I'd had in, I believe it was August of 21, I had a hysterectomy to try to take care of my monthly pain, excruciating pain. And it wasn't just every month, it was almost all the time. So doctors did a hysterectomy, and I was healing from that and couldn't lift anything, limited on my activity. And she called me at like 4 in the morning and was like, I need you to come pick me up and take me to the emergency room. And there's no way I can pick her up. She was way too big, 1, and 2, like, I shouldn't be lifting. So I was like, we need to call 911. I said, you need to hang up the phone with me, call 911, and have them come get you and take you to the emergency room. A few minutes go by, she calls me back. She goes, I can't figure out how to call 911. I thought, well, that's really weird. But okay, so I called 911 for her, and I dispatched them over to her. And they go and pick her up. Well, when she gets discharged from the hospital, I picked her up from the hospital and got her inside her house. And basically, they didn't see anything. Wanted her to follow up with her regular doctors. Which, we'd had some doctor changeover here and just various different things, which is fine. But we didn't really have the original doctors that had seen all the scans. Yes, they compare previous scans, but it's just, we weren't seeing who we probably need to be seen by. Well, then you go a little bit more forward, and I get a call from her, and she has driven herself to an urgent care. And when she got to the urgent care, based on what she was having symptom-wise, they wanted her to go to the hospital. So instead of taking the ambulance that they wanted her to take to the hospital, she was adamant she'd drive because she wanted her car at the hospital. So they let her drive, which was, it was only a couple blocks. It wasn't far, but still, she drove herself to the hospital and called me once she was admitted. So I find this out after the fact, of course, but it's all explainable when you start accounting for everything that happened. But anywho, God love her, she drove herself to the hospital, and they do a bunch of tests. She's basically admitted for a week. She keeps having these falls. They don't see any tumor regrowth, but they think that maybe she's having some neurology episodes of some sort, but they can't pinpoint it. She's such a high fall risk, they're like, well, she needs to go get physical therapy. So they think it's just muscular. Go to physical therapy for a good month, 2 months. They basically say there's nothing more that they can do, but that she's still too weak on the left side, even though they've done everything. So they basically tell me that I have to figure it out. Now, I live in a multi-story home. No way it's safe for her to live with me because she would come tumbling down those stairs very quickly, I'm sure. And we couldn't risk that. She couldn't live alone anymore. The trailer, even though it was one floor, yes, you have to get up a few stairs to get into the trailer, but then the trailer's not fitted for having a walker or a wheelchair, which really she needed to be in a wheelchair. So my next best thing is putting her in a nursing home. One of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make was to put her in a nursing home, but it was the safest spot for her. She was 61 years old in a nursing home, so very detrimental in that aspect, but that's what was best. So to a nursing home she was, while we continue to pursue these doctors and figure out who she needs to be with. Finally get her to a neurologist oncologist who specializes in glioblastoma. And we go and see this doctor, and she was wonderful. And she does all these tests and looks at MRIs, everything. And she lets us know that, hey, basically, congratulations, you've survived the GBM. You don't have a reoccurrence. However, the treatment for you to have survived this long with glioblastoma, the radiation has killed brain cells. And those dead brain cells are expanding throughout the brain and killing more brain cells. And those brain cells then in turn are killing more brain cells. And basically what is happening is it's killing your brain. And we can't function without a brain. And you can't regrow brain. So basically the radiation is slowly killing her, and her brain is disowning the left side. It's forgetting that she even has a left side. So that's why these falls are very sudden. She doesn't even have a thought process that she's falling, which made a whole lot of sense because she is so terrified of falling that I realized that that's why these weren't traumatizing her more. These falls weren't, because she was just so nonchalant about them. And so it started making a lot of sense. And it's why when nursing home staff were like transferring her from bed to the wheelchair or to a walker, she would be fine and then suddenly fall. I can't tell you like how many days I'd get a call that there was a fall at the nursing home with her. And 90% of the time, it was with a staff member right there, and they're like, she was fine. She was standing 1 minute and then down the next second. Literally that quickly. And for safety precautions, when somebody's falling, they ease them to the floor. They have to. They can't try to catch them because then everybody could end up in a pile. So they just gently ease the person down to the floor, but they have to count that as a fall. So basically, she went from working multiple jobs and driving, living on her own, to in a nursing home, wheelchair and bedbound. To do the wheelchair transfers, it got so unsafe that they then had to use a lift to lift her from the bed to the wheelchair. And I know that that was just awful for her. And I mean, before we even knew all this, and I dropped her off at the nursing home and I had to leave that night and leave her there, I just felt like I was abandoning my mother. It was an awful, awful feeling. But I knew it was the right thing for her. It didn't make that any easier. This guy's coming out a little funky, but so she's having all these like falls, and basically neurologist now tells us that there's nothing you can do. Basically the brain is going to continue to die, and you're going to slowly lose your mom. She's going to experience, she doesn't have these things, but she's going to experience symptoms of Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's disease. So basically, we are going to lose her mind. We are going to lose the mind to body connection, and she could have shakes, which she had started to have, the left hand especially, but we were starting to see some signs in the right side too. So that was the news that they gave us. And my mom, true to herself, just said, okay, it is what it is. I'm just meant to be in the nursing home and bring smiles to those that are in the nursing home. And she didn't shed a tear. She just was like, I am going to bring smiles to the other residents, and that's how it's going to be. And she did. She brought a lot of smiles and made connections with a lot of people in the nursing home. She was a really good friend to a lot of people. Both the staff and the residents, truthfully. So, staff loved her. It just speaks to her. She was such an amazing person. Plus mom, obviously, but a wonderful human. So we get that diagnosis, and she continues to live, and she has a relatively good life, considering. We celebrated her 62nd birthday at the nursing home. My sister and her fiance came to town. My husband grilled steaks and brought them to her, and all this food. We set up and had a flamingo party. She loved flamingos. And it was a really good time. We made the best of the situation that we could. We decorated her room. If you ever have somebody in a nursing home, they have these frames that you can put in there, and you can share the code with family, and family can put photos on that frame, and you can keep it on all night. You can go into the settings to where it stays on. She loved hers. My boss, thank goodness for him for finding that and even thinking of it to send it to us, and he sent that to me and within the first week or two that she was in a nursing home, and it brought her so much joy, and she loved it to be on at night because she'd wake up in the middle of the night and she could just look at memories or what people were experiencing that day. So that was a lot of joy there. We would do little things. I would go up every weekend, and we did at this point, when we realized that she's going to be experiencing all these symptoms and things, my grandmother had the great thought and ability to tell me to call hospice. And here in Kentucky, they call it hospice. And I thought, well, she's not on her deathbed. Why would I call them? But honestly, it was the best decision I made. Hospice can be involved in the end of life up to a year or two. Maybe even longer, depending on the person's condition. Basically, the requirements is that they have a non-curable something, and that you're not seeking treatment. So we were no longer seeking treatment. There was nothing you can do. Nothing you can do about this. So we had a phenomenal hospice team, down to chaplain, volunteer, her primary nurse, her primary social worker, all of them. And then even the other ones that would fill in when the primaries were unavailable were just tremendously wonderful. They would work with mom. They would go and visit with her. The chaplain, she fell in love with the chaplain. She made such a connection with him. And the chaplain follows whatever the patient wants to talk about, belief, whatever it is. My mom had an eclectic belief of things, and he just flowed right with it, and it was phenomenal. The volunteer, what a blessing. She would go and spend about an hour once a week and chat with Mom and play games with her, do whatever she wanted. And that was really a blessing. Brought her a lot of joy in those last months. Sadly, you know, we didn't know when the end would be. You don't, nobody does. So that time was tough. It was trying for us all the family. And we would go through these spurts where I would call the social worker and the nurse so many times and in a tizzy because I'm like, oh my gosh, Mom said this today. Like, oh my goodness, this is going on. It's the end. And it really isn't, but it just feels very traumatic like that. And she would basically have these dips and then she would kind of plateau back out. It wasn't like she'd come back to that same level of being, but she would level back out for a while and stable. She would get on these things and hyper focus on things. She would be very forgetful about things. She really couldn't walk. It wasn't safe to have her behind a walker, so the walker had to go away, of course. She was being transferred via lift to and from her bed to the wheelchair, but she was still being very active. Even still, like she would go down for meals. And then slowly things started to change. And you would see that she would start to become more in her room. And so then you're like, okay, that's a sign that she's pulling away. But then she'd go months or weeks with something like that, you know, and then it would be all of a sudden, like we're plateaued and we're like, okay, we're doing good. And then all of a sudden we'd have something else come up. That was a little sign towards that. Well, about a week before, oh, that one is funky. I think I'm going to have to cut it better. I was going to make it work, but it's just not going to be a perfect square. But about a week before her passing, she had been really, really sick. And this is, of course, still kind of COVID time. I mean, it is today still COVID time. So I didn't go see her that Saturday like I normally would or Sunday, because she had been throwing up, running a fever, and my youngest had a very rare complication to COVID and was in the hospital for a week. All around the time that Mom went into the hospital, drove herself to the hospital right after my hysterectomy, my youngest went into the hospital. I guess maybe I had my surgery the last week of August, first part of September. I don't know. It honestly, that whole period is a blur just because so much happened in that time frame. But my littlest ended up in the hospital. Went in on my oldest daughter's birthday to the hospital and was admitted. Went to the PICU on my husband's birthday a few days later. And then she was there a total of a week before we were discharged and things better. But because of that, her pediatrician has always told us to keep her bubble really tight and to be very conscious of what we bring into the household because of her reaction to it. We don't know if her body would react the same if she got it again. There's just not a lot of data on it. So if the concern was if Mom had COVID, then I shouldn't go see her and not be around her and not bring that back into the household. So this is like Friday, we find out that she's got this high fever. All day Saturday, she's been throwing up with a fever. Come Sunday, I get a call in the afternoon from the nursing home that she is just not in a good space and that they've called hospice in and that they don't know what's going on. But basically, I want to say they tested her for COVID and maybe it wasn't back yet. I don't remember. Again, it's a very blur. And Mom wouldn't answer her phone. So I finally called the nursing home and had them take a phone in so that I can talk to her. And we had lost my grandpa. Like, this all just feels unreal because there's just so much. We lost my grandpa 7 weeks prior to this. Well, 6 weeks prior to this at this point. On Christmas Day, my sister and I had to tell our mom that her dad was dying and that a blood clot had gone to his lung and that he was at the hospital, and doctors had said there's nothing they can do. He will die. A couple days later, he actually did pass. But we were lucky because we got to speak with our grandpa, and our mom got to speak with her dad, and he got to sing her a song called Oh Cindy, and her name was Cindy, and it was really beautiful. But there were times when we spoke with our grandpa that he was very raspy and short of breath because he had a clot in his lung, and you could tell things were coming to an end. Well, I finally get Mom on the phone, and she sounded just like my grandpa did. And I got off the phone with her, and I lost it because I just told my husband, I was like, this is it. So this is it. And luckily, the nurse that was on call that day for hospice was Mom's primary nurse. I still remember that. And she called me, and she's like, Rebecca, your mom's not doing really good at all. And I was just so thankful to hear this nurse's voice because she'd been through all this with me through the journey of this side of things, and knew Mom and knew the condition and knew me well enough, to be able to tell me. And I said, well, do I need to come up? She said, I don't want to tell you not to come up. But I know, she goes, I know your concerns of coming up because we don't know if this is COVID. We don't know. We don't know if this is the end. We don't know. But your mom is not in a good spot. And so, talking over with her, talking over with my husband, we decided I would go up. It's now 6 or 7 on Sunday. And she's a half hour. The nursing home's like a half hour away. So I load up. I wear multiple masks into the nursing home, into Mom's room. And it was bizarro land. Really was bizarro land. She was in a state that I can't even really describe, other than it was like her brain kept resetting every 30 to 90 seconds, just kind of like restart over. She'd want to drink, and then her back hurt, and then it would like start back over, repeating the same things. So they finally got morphine approved for her, and it was around 9 o'clock that the morphine finally kicked in, and she was able to rest. So I decided it was time for me to leave, let her rest, and that I would come back the next day, of course, on Monday. So left her, came home, stripped all my clothes off, threw them in the washer, Lysoled my car. I hopped in the shower. I mean, just all the precautions that we could, just in case it was COVID. We eventually found out she didn't have COVID and the fever was broken. But, as precaution, this is what we do. So, Monday comes, I go back up, and I'm sitting with her, and she's, again, it's like exhausting because she is just in this loop that is repeating itself, and she can't come off this loop, basically. And but she's also very coherent in a weird way, and she wants to talk to my sister, and she wants to talk to my grandma, she wants to talk to my dad, which they were divorced, and she wanted to talk to old friends and basically say goodbyes. And she told me she was dying, and she told me she wanted to go see her dad and her Aunt Mary Lou, who had passed away when she was a child. When my mom was a child, her Aunt Mary Lou had passed away in a terrible automobile accident, and she was like, I'm going to go give them a big old hug. And I asked her, do you want my sister and grandma to come? Yes, very clear. I'm dying. I said, okay. So basically, I sat vigilant with her I'd get up there around 8 in the morning, and I'd stay till 6 or 7 at night, and then come home and do it all again the next day. The Tuesday, my sister did make it in because she had left on that Monday to drive here with her and her fiance, and they made it. to see her, and she was coherent. And then my sister was with me, and her fiance was our errand person. He would go grab us food. He would grab whatever we needed for her room at the time, things like that. And then our grandmother made it into town, and we had a beautiful experience with cardinals, and got Mom moved to a private room, and these cardinals showed up. It was all very magical. And then and the cardinal was very vibrant. There was a male and a female, and it really felt like our grandpa visiting and checking in and waiting for her. And they would check in periodically throughout the days from that moment on. And then Friday came, we said our goodbyes to her. She got to play bingo, which she loved Friday. So it was really fun to see her get excited about that. And by this point, she was still drinking, eating very little. Still drinking some, eating very little. So we knew things were kind of coming to an end. But Friday night, I told her I love her. And she responded, love you. And then I took Saturday morning as a break because I had been on with her so much. I decided that Saturday morning my grandmother and my sister could handle it, and I would hang out with my family a little bit and just try to revive myself, which thank goodness I did that, because I guess everything happens for a reason, and we just know things. So went up Saturday, took lunch to everybody, and then ended up spending the night up there Saturday into Sunday because things were turning really bad. My sister left for a little bit, and I really hadn't slept, been kind of in and out, and Mom had some breathing complications and various little things, and then that I don't want to get into because nobody should have to relive that. But anyway, called my sister at one point, and she came back up, and when she got up there, I remember just being at peace, and I laid my head down on Mom's bed. I was sitting in a chair next to her, and I laid my head down on the bed by her side, and I think I was holding her hand or had my hand on her or something, and I don't think it had been that long. My sister tapped me and pointed. She was on the other side of Mom. She tapped me and pointed, and Mom took her last breath. We were there, and we did her final wishes, and had to go, of course, to the nursing home, and that started all that. But it was really tough. It was really tough. And this last year has not been easy without her. She was 62 years old. Ironically, take 62, flip it around, you get 26, her favorite number. So, whew, I know it was meant to be, but it doesn't make it any easier. Things I've learned in the past year is that grief is exhausting. It hits you at different times. It definitely comes in waves. Whew. And the only way to survive is one breath at a time. And keep breathing, you know. She would have wanted us to keep living. Oh, I realized I totally forgot to say how the Cranes came about. So, I'm going to share that. When Mom got diagnosed with a brain tumor, she said, we need to make cranes. We need to make origami cranes. Her and my sister had read this story when my sister was in first grade about a Japanese woman who was deathly ill, and the woman's friend made 1,000 cranes to give a wish for her friend to be better. And the friend magically became better against all doctors' odds and thoughts. And she accounted that to her friend making the 1,000 cranes. And so there is a Japanese story about that and how 1,000 cranes grants you a wish. So we said between family and friends, we'll make 1,000 cranes. Well, we started, and I had to learn. I had to watch a YouTube video multiple times to learn how to fold an Origami Crane because I couldn't do it like I did these at all. And then come when Mom got diagnosed with a GBM, I just inadvertently to my dad said, we need to make 10,000. We need to make 10,000 cranes. And not thinking what 10,000 cranes meant. And my dad was like, okay. I think he probably realized, but it hadn't sunk into me. So I was like, we're going to do it. We're going to make 10,000 cranes. Well, a lot of family and friends were like, well, we're committed to the 1,000. You know, we'll help get to the 1,000. So my sister and I continued to fold, and we had some friends continue to fold throughout. Well, 1 year prior to Mom's 1 year diagnosis of having a brain tumor, Mom made the 10,000th crane with the help of my sister walking her through that. And so that was really special. I would predict, I stopped counting, but I would predict I've probably folded over 10,000 in the last 7-8 years with that. So pretty phenomenal, the thing that she's done. I have a Facebook page, 10,000 Cranes for Cindy. I don't keep up on it now as much, obviously, but I did keep up quite a bit with it, like with the crane count weekly. And like I said, I used to track it, but now I've made so many. At MRIs, we would fold cranes while Mom was in the MRI. It would take about an hour for her to have the MRI. And so my goal was always 26 cranes through her doctor's appointments. I got to where I was so quick I could do about 52 during a doctor's appointment, which is double 26 times 2. So anywho, that's the Origami Crane. And look at these. They're all pretty. This right here is 21. So I want to teach y'all how to do them. I am going to use, we're going to move on to positive. Oh, wipe the tears away and smile for my mama. So this is a 6-inch origami paper. I highly suggest, if you've never folded origami, you start with origami paper. It's thinner than regular paper. It's going to be your easiest bet to get this right. Doing this type of paper that I was using, some of that was origami paper, but some was not, and that can be challenging until you get more with it. 6-inch is great to learn with just because you can see where all the folds are opposed to those smaller ones. So we'll start here. So 6-inch, this is the back side. This is the side we want to show. So you start with the side you want to be on the front, and you're going to go corner to corner. And it's important that you try to get your folds accurate so that it stays lined up. And I'm going to do 5 of these as a tutorial, so you'll get repetitiveness. Okay. So we've done corner to corner. We've unfolded. Now we're going to go end to end, except I almost told y'all wrong. We're going to put the outside out for the end to end. And again, getting as close to the edge as possible, making sure your seams and creases are good. Now, we're going to have this, and we're going to push 2 ends together. Now we have kind of like this star, and we're going to make what's called a water bomb. So the water bomb looks like this, basically. You have an opening here, and your bottom here. So we're going to, this is our bottom. This is where it's all sealed, corner up here. So we're going to take just half of this, and we're going to fold it to the center, to that center line. And we're going to take the other half and fold to the center line. We are going to take the top and fold it down. So now it kind of looks like this. This part gets a little tricky, but with practice you'll get it. You're going to open this back up. You're going to open right here. And you're going to basically fold it to where these, like your creases are going to kind of help automatically do it once you get it in the right position. So we're folding these, and then we want this guy to be a corner as much as possible, corner tip. Now we're going to flip it over, and we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to fold to the center, fold to the center, fold our top down, and then we open it up, and I always hold right here because then it makes this part a little bit easier to get it folded within itself. So now when we look at it, this is our top, this is our bottom. So from the bottom here, we're going to fold to the center again, and we're going to fold to the center again, and then we're going to flip it, fold to the center again, fold to the center again, pulling those creases. Now that we have it like this, we're going to take one side, go up like that, and then we're going to fold it the other direction and up. It gives us a good crease. Then we're going to open it and pull that up and try to fold him to where that's as much of a corner as we can. Just for ease sake, I flip it so that I have better grip with my right hand. Doing the same exact thing, folding this direction to give us a good crease there. And that allows us to turn this guy up and decide here. Now this is where I decide who's going to get the beak and who's going to stay the tail. I always decide based on what is prettier. So this is a nice tail. It's all nice and pointy. It folded beautifully. This didn't so much, so this is going to be the beak. I'm going to fold it down and kind of push with my fingernail to give us that kind of look. And then we will fold our wings down, and there's our crane. You could leave him like that, or if you want a poofed up body, you gently pull the wings out and you get a poofed body. So you'll notice I did that on some, not on all. It's fine. Alright, here we go again. 6-inch square. Guys, gotta have a square. You saw me trim a few of those others. It's because you gotta have a square. Corner to corner with our outside pattern in. Lining those up. Now, end to end, outside out. I'm sliding all over. The bigger ones I have to do on a hard surface like this, whereas those smaller ones you saw I did without. You know, I just did it in the air. Alright, we're going to push this together, and this is going to create what's called a water bomb. Water bombs are used in a lot of origami things. So, this is our bottom because it opens. This is our top because it's a corner sealed. So, we're going to go to the center. These creases here are super important so that it will fold correctly. If you have too thick of paper, it will make those creases hard. We're going to fold that corner down. And then we want to hold this like that so that we can open it up. And I will tell you that I watched a YouTube tutorial multiple times. I would pause, restart, go back until I got a lot better. My first cranes were, Mom would always say they were beautiful no matter what. My first ones were a little distorted, let's just say. So we're going center to center, corner down. Gonna hold here so that we can open this guy up. Alright, so now we've got this funky diamond that's got floppy legs. So we're going to go to the center again. Center again. Flip. Center again. Center again. And then we are going to fold up and back. And then we can open this up and follow our creases and try to make that a point. And it's a pretty point. Flip it over, up and back, fold, forward, open up the crease. So that one came out really nice and pointy. This one did a little funky, so I'm going to bend him, put my nail in there, make him a beak, and then bring our wings down And there we go. Beautiful origami crane. Alright. So, do another one. This one, this paper, you could do either side. Would be pretty. But this one's more vibrant, so that's going to be my outside. So it's on the inside right now. First fold is where our pretty paper is on the inside. Corner to corner. Corner to corner. Now, we're going to put our pretty paper to where it's up when we fold it. We can see it. And we're going end to end. And this allows for it to be able to stand and push it together and make our sides. So now we have a water bomb. You'll notice water bomb is a square and it's all pretty. So this is our top because it's all connected. Our bottom is open. So we're going to go corner to center. This pattern's a little hard to see my center line, but I kind of know where I'm going just based on having made so many. And then we're going to fold our corner down, and then we're going to open it back up. Make sure that we hold down here. We just have that one layer to make it go open. And this is the start of our wings. Now I have folded so many that I've done paper, origami paper, I've done the wrapping paper, I've done thick glitter paper, which is not easy but is really pretty. I've done magazine paper cut into squares, everything. You'll get to where you can look at your water bomb and determine what you want to show on your wings and be able to determine that if you do enough of them. Alright, so we did corner to corner, that corner down, and then now we're opening again. This one is not wanting to cooperate as much. There we go. Alright, now we've got this funky diamond with little flappy legs. I'm going to fold to the corner, or to, not to the corner, to the center. Fold our corner to the center over here. Flip it to the center again. To the center again. Now we got these flappy legs. I'm going to go up and to the back and up, and then we can open and pull that all the way up. Slick and sweet. Flip it over to the front, to the back, open to bring this up. If you've ever tried to do the instructions off the black and white that come with the origami paper, whew, it is really challenging. Alright, that was my less pretty side, so he became the beak. Fold down our wings. This one I think will look really good poofed. If I can get it to... Oh, look how pretty! That's so gorgeous. Alright, we got two more, y'all. Alrighty, pretty side up. Corner to corner. And then pretty side out, we're going edge to edge. And we're going to flip that up, push it down to make that water bomb. So as you can see, you could turn it, and that could be your outside, that could be your wings, that could be your wings. These ones are all the pattern is relatively the same, so you're not worried about that. But like when I did these, I chose which ones would end up on the wings so that you get a prettier style. So water bomb, top, bottom open. I'm going to fold to the center line, fold into the center line, and then fold our triangle that's at the top there over like that. We're going to open it all back up, one layer, and voila, like so. Okay, flip. to the center, on over, open it up, something's going on there, it's not wanting to lay right. I probably didn't get a perfect fold, which is why that's happening. So, alright, but even with little things like that, you're fine. It's going to still come out pretty. Alrighty, we're going to fold to our center again. Fold to our center again. We're going to flip her. Fold to our center. Fold to our center. Now we've got these little legs. Fold up. Fold to the back. Now we can open. And bring it all the way up. Flip. Fold front. Fold back. Open. Fold up. This one's pretty close. Which one is a little bit more pointy? I think that one is. So I'll do this one as the beak. Fold him in. Fold our wings down. Again, I think this one might look good poofed. Like that. Alright, we're going to do one more. Alrighty. Pretty side inside, corner to corner. Pretty side outside, end to end. Oop, he didn't stand up very well. Come together to make a water bomb. And now we do to center, to center. And that down, and then open her up. And flip, center to center. Fold our corner down, and open her up. A little squirrely there. There we go. Alright. Funky legs. I'm going to go to center. To center. And then we're going to go center to center. Alright, fold up. Fold up. Open this up. I think I ended up with like a little extra fold within there that was making that a little harder, but that's okay. We got her. Alright. And because of that, this side is going to be the beak, because I don't think I'll get that one bent very well. Alright. Wings down. And there's our origami crane. And that's how you fold an origami crane, y'all. Alright, I'm going to show you one more little thing before I sign off. And that's a flamingo, because my mother loved flamingos. So, pink paper, just because that's a flamingo. This is 3-inch. Like I said, 3-inch is kind of my favorite. It's the same concept as a crane. I'm folding corner to corner. Other direction. This is a little bit hard because it is pink on both sides, but you just have to know which side you're putting forward or up. And we're end to end. Make our water bomb. I'm doing this fast just because you may or may not. If you know how to do a crane, you're going to get this part pretty easy. There's just a little non-step basically to make a flamingo. So center to center. Fold down, open the guy up, So this is just a bonus because we got to do a flamingo for her. So sometimes when I was showing you guys, I did both sides of the legs at the same time, or the beak and the head, but this one I just decided to, sometimes I do them at the same time, but I wanted to show it to you. So this is just, rather than folding this one up and bringing it up for the tail, you leave it down for the legs. And there is an origami flamingo for my mom, Miss Cindy, Nana. We sure do miss her every day. Loss is just so profound. So if you're going through it, I completely understand and can relate. You can reach out to me if you need anything, support. Sadly, it's a club you don't want to be a part of, but if you're there, you completely understand. I will put a picture of my mom at the end. I hope you guys enjoyed this very unique, different style of tutorial, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Do something fun and smile today, please. Thanks.